Hi, Alex Heeren here. I'm a Technology Integration Coordinator with the Office of Digital Learning. Today we're going to be talking about how to use Microsoft Teams to teach remotely with your students. So we're just going to go through the basics in this training, the stuff you need to know, but there's a lot of stuff out there, so if you're interested in learning more, feel free to check our website, which I'll share with you in just a second, or reach out to us for more training. So, what you're going to learn in this video: how to install Teams on your devices. That could be on your computer or on your mobile device. So we're not going to go over the interfaces of Teams on a phone or a tablet, but all of the same stuff is there. It's just in a little bit different places. So just look for those highlights that tell you where you're at if you're on one of those devices. We're also going to talk about how to get around in Teams and the important places you need to know about. We're going to talk about how to make announcements, how to make assignments, and how you can manage discussions in your class in the general channel, which is going to be kind of your home base for your teams. We're going to talk about how to upload files that you've created, including Word, PowerPoint documents, pictures, videos, things like that for your students to access. We're going to show you how to create and grade assignments, which is going to be important, obviously, if we're going to be teaching remotely. We'll also talk about some of the important settings in Teams that you'll want to set up so you can help control your classes remotely when you're in Teams. We're also going to talk about how to record a lesson and then upload that to a team. So if you want to learn more about this video and many others are going to be posted on the techtoolbox.pcsb.org blog. We're going to be constantly updating that with more information as we get feedback from people and we learn more about what this process looks like. So please feel free to check that out and keep up with all the latest updates. That also on that page is an example of a student handout and what we're going to be expecting students to be able to do if Teams is being used for digital remote learning. All right, so first thing you want to do is download Teams. You can do that by going to teams.microsoft.com/downloads. Now, if you do that on your computer, it'll download an installer that you would then run. You can also go to the App Store, which would be on Apple or Android. You go to the App Store and download the Microsoft Teams app. Students can also do this, and if they download the app and log in to that app, they'll be able to check their assignments and keep up with their classes on their phones, which is pretty convenient. One other thing to note here is if you find that Teams is making your computer, especially on older computers, it can be a little bit sluggish on kind of lower end, older computers. If you find that to be the case, you can always just use Teams in a web browser. You can open up Chrome and go to teams.microsoft.com, or just go through Clever. It's probably the easiest way to do it. And you can just run Teams in a web browser, and it all looks very, very similar if you do that. So everything that I talk about here will also apply there. All right, so we're in Teams here. This is what, when you first log into Teams through Clever, or you download the app and you log in with your PCSB credentials, you will see your Teams. It plays something like this. So let's talk about the interface here a little bit. Right now, I am looking at the general channel. So what you always want to look at, a lot of times when people first start using Teams, they can get lost in the interface a little bit, not sure where they're at. So what you want to do is look at what is highlighted or what is underlined. So in this case, you can see on the left-hand side, I've got Teams selected. I'm in my general channel for my first period Introduction to Info Technology class. And then I'm in the Posts tab within that general channel. Later on, I'll be going across to the Files and Assignments tabs. We're not going to go into Class Notebook for this. That's kind of beyond the scope of this getting started video, but if you're a OneNote user or if you want to try using that, it's a very cool tool that I would recommend playing with. But we're not going to go into the Class Notebook tab in this video. So again, always look at what's highlighted to figure out where you're at in Teams. Now, when the district rosters your teams, we will add all of your students to it automatically. The students will not be able to see the team until you activate it. I can't replicate that here because I'm not in a classroom with students that has a focus class attached to it. But when you first log in to your teams, you'll see a button at the top, like a blue button that says activate. You can set your teams up before you activate that so that your students, when they first get in the team, will see the things that you want them to see. But as soon as you click that activate button, it will become active and your students will be able to get in there. All right, so let's talk about that general channel I mentioned earlier. You can use that general channel to create announcements. You can use that to, every time you make a new assignment, students will see it in that general channel. It'll be an announcement that that assignment has been made. You can also choose to mute and unmute students individually to run class discussions through that general channel. We will talk about later on. There's a section in this video about important settings. We'll talk about how to mute and unmute students so that you can have control over your classroom when you do those discussions. As someone who used to teach 7th grade math, that was always my first question. So I'll give you some recommendations on what we think are best practices for those spaces. All right, so we're in my general channel. I'm in my posts, and I want to make an assignment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this advanced text box at the bottom left corner. It's the thing that has a little A on it. And then I'm going to click the drop down where it says new conversation and change that to an announcement. So what this does is it is going to send out a notification to your students. So every student in this class will see a notification saying, hey, my teacher said something important. I need to pay attention to this. Now, if you're in here and you click this button over here, that button will actually let you set a nice little background, which is kind of neat. You can also post this announcement into multiple channels, which means you could post it in the general channel, which is your kind of home base, but for other classes. So if I have the same prep but 6 different classes, I can take this same announcement, have it post to all those classes at the same time so that I don't have to just kind of recreate this same announcement over and over again. There's also something kind of hidden right here. It's a little hard to see, but it says everyone can reply. You can choose to disable replies to this announcement so your students can't say anything if you have left them unmuted. If you've muted all of your students, they can't reply anyway, so that's going to be irrelevant. Otherwise, this is just a what you see is what you get type editor. So this is going to be how you make announcements, and you can tell your students how to do various things from there. All right, so another thing you might want to be able to do is to upload files to your class team. So when you go to the Files tab across the top here, you can see that there's a folder called Class Materials. So you can upload things like PowerPoints, Word documents, PDFs, videos into that Class Materials folder, and students will be able to read it but not edit it. So this can be really valuable if you want to share content with your students, but you don't want them to be able to mess with stuff. Now, if you wanted them to work on an assignment, you can actually do that through the assignments interface, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So if I want something to distribute like a worksheet or something, rather than putting it in my class materials folder, I would actually just attach that to an assignment. So this isn't necessarily for documents that are based on assignments, although you could put them here too. This is more for just things for people to reference. A good example of that would be if you had a daily PowerPoint that you had warm-ups in every day. You could keep that PowerPoint in your class materials folder, and then you could just work on it from within Teams. You can actually load up PowerPoint inside of Teams, just all of Office 365 works in here, and just edit that same document so the kids always have access to your latest warm-ups. So that's what you could use Teams file storage for. There's a 15 gigabyte file size limit, so I don't think anyone would run into that unless you're uploading some bootleg video of something, but just be aware of that. Okay, so let's talk about the assignment section here. So when I'm teaching, obviously one of the things I'm going to need to be able to do is create assignments for my students. So across that top in my general channel, you've got the assignments tab. So you can, when you first create an assignment, you go to assignments and click create. You're going to have the option to create an assignment or a quiz. So a quiz is based off of Office 365 forms. It's really, really convenient. If you go to Office 365 and you can get there through Clever, you can make a form that is automatically graded. So that's a quiz. And what happens if I go into Teams is it'll actually, and so when I make this in Teams and I click make a quiz, it'll actually pull a list of all of the forms and quizzes I've ever already made. So I can go and make my quiz in Microsoft Forms, come start a quiz in Teams, and then just pull that pre-existing quiz in here. So what's nice is that'll get graded automatically. Another thing you can do when you create your team is you can also set it to create from existing. So let's say you had a daily check-in assignment or something like a daily warm-up or a daily journal that you wanted your kids to do every day. You can create that assignment from an existing assignment, and that way you don't have to start from scratch every time you make something if it's a regular thing that you're going to do. One other thing, a couple things I want to talk about here. So you have a title, obviously for what this assignment is. You also have categories that you can set. So you can create a couple of different categories. These don't directly tie into Focus. Right now, we want teachers to have the freedom to set their grade books up like they want in Focus. Therefore, we can't mandate this connection with Teams. I think about it like this. Right now, if you're working in a classroom and you're grading papers, then you have to just transcribe those papers into Focus anyway. So this is kind of like that. The difference is that if you're using like quizzes or something like that in Teams, the quizzes would grade themselves, and then you just transcribe that over to Focus later on. So You would then put some instructions in. I want to point out this Add Resources button. This is really, really important. This allows you to upload documents that your kids will get a copy of. This is like handing them out something for them to work on. So if I create a Word document and then upload that here by clicking Add Resources, then each student will be able to edit their own version of that I can then grade when they turn it in. You can also attach links to videos. You can attach links to other websites, and you can put all kinds of things under the Add Resources button. So that's something that you're going to want to use for sure. Another thing that you'll want to do is to look at how many points something is worth. Obviously, you want to give it a certain number of points. And you can also look at who you're going to assign this video to. So if I am making an assignment, like I said, maybe I have 6 classes, but they're all the same prep, I can choose to assign an assignment to all of those classes at the same time. So I don't have to just go through one at a time and make this assignment. I can choose to assign it to all of those classes all at once. Another thing I want to mention here is this little edit button. So by default, when I make an assignment, the kids will just see it. It'll be in the general channel, it'll show up, and they will be able to work on it. And by default, they can also turn it in late. So if you wanted to change those things, you could actually click that edit button and set up assignments to go ahead of time. So I could set up assignments for tomorrow or 3 days or a week from now, and they would show up when I set them to show up. I can also turn off late turn-ins. So if I want to have a hard deadline for something to be turned in, that little edit button is where I would disable late turn-ins. Okay, so how to grade an assignment. So if I'm going to grade an assignment, what I'm going to do is click on I'm going to go into the Assignments tab. I'm going to click that assignment that I've made. That takes you to this view. So from here, I can see what a student would see in the student view. I can export all my data to Excel, which is really convenient for transcribing that into Focus. And it also will categorize assignments as to grade or already graded. So the way that works is when a student hits turn in, and this is very important, you need to emphasize with your students, if they want you to see something that they've done, their work, they have to hit that turn in button. It is in the top right corner of their assignment. They have to hit turn in. They'll get a little neat animation. They actually really like that, so it's a nice little incentive for them, but they have to hit turn in. Once they do that, it'll go into your assignments here as to grade. So let's say I've gone in, and in this case I've already graded this assignment. I only have 1 test student in this class. I've graded it so it shows up under my graded tab. So they don't mix your to grade and your graded tabs together. So let's see how I would actually grade an assignment. So in this case, I'm going to click on test student 13. I'm going to click on their name, and that'll take me into the work that they've done. So this is what the grading page looks like. In this case, I've assigned them a Word document for them to fill out, and this was blank. The student went in and filled all this out and then clicked the turn in button, so now I can see the work they did. And I'm actually able to leave feedback here in the feedback pane. This student actually uploaded a picture as well. This can be useful. A student can add their own work. So the 3-2-1 template I assigned to them. But let's say, for example, I was a math teacher. Math can be a lot easier to teach if the students are actually writing on paper. So if that's the case, it might be easier for them to do their work on a piece of paper and then take a picture of that and upload it here. So if that was the case, you'd see that uploaded file within their assignment that they turned in. I can go through and give feedback. I can give the number of points assigned. And then once I've done this student's grade, I've graded this student's, I'm just going to click these left and right arrows to go to the next student that I have to grade. So this is where that kind of categorizing of to grade or not to grade, that is the question, right? Once I've graded an assignment, it doesn't show up in this list anymore because I've already graded it. And so I can work on things as they come in without letting them all pile up and then getting confused as to like which ones I have to look at and which ones I don't. And then just clicking those arrows will take me right to the next student, and I can just crank through my grades pretty quickly, which is a pretty convenient thing. Once I've finished with the grades and I'm done grading for this session, I can just click that close button, and that'll take me back to my assignment view where I can look at all of my students' grades or export it back to Excel. All right, so far we've talked about the general channel, how to make posts, assignments. We've talked about how to make grades where the students can see the assignments. Now I want to talk about discussions. So by default, when your students join a team, they can post in that general channel, and they'll be able to have discussions with you. As someone, again, who has taught 7th graders, I personally think it's very, very important to control those conversations very strictly. This is up to personal style, but I do want to go over some of those important settings. So The first thing I would do when I get into my new teams is I'm going to go in here next to the name for my team. There's little 3 dots. Those are called breadcrumbs. You can always click on breadcrumbs to find more new options. It's very important to know. Then I'm going to go to manage team. So when I click manage team, it's going to take me to this view. So I'm in my manage team view, and I would normally see all my other students listed down here. I only have one in this example case. Right. So I want to emphasize this button right here, that mute students button. If I click that, it's going to mute everybody in my class. They will not be able to have conversations in here. First thing I do when I come in here is click that button. I'm going to mute them all by default. Now, if I want to lead a class discussion, or if I want to have it open for a day and I am actively monitoring it, I might turn that off so the kids can talk back and forth, or they can respond to something that I've posted in my general channel. Let's say that I'm doing this and one student isn't acting inappropriately. First of all, as the teacher, I can go delete their inappropriate posts, but you can also choose to mute individual students. So I can mute just the student that is being inappropriate without taking that ability to communicate away from everybody. So you do have that granular control, which is really, really nice here. Another thing that you can do if you go into your settings, so across that top tab there, you can click on more settings, and there's a ton of stuff in here. You can change the theme, change the pictures, you can turn GIFs on or off. There's a bunch of cool stuff, but I do want to focus on 2 things I recommend turning off from the get-go. So under member permissions, and your students count as members, there are 2 things. Give members the option to delete their messages, and give members the option to edit their messages. By default, this is turned on. This is a personal preference. I think it's useful to turn these off because a student could go in and say Mr. Heeren stinks at teaching, and then edit that to say Mr. Heeren's great at teaching, and I might not notice it. If I turn these off, I as the owner, you can see, still have the ability to edit these messages, but I have that control. I want the students to be held accountable for the things that they say in my class. So those are kind of the main settings for controlling your students in your class. The other one I want to talk about are the settings for notifications. So you might not want all of your notifications to pop up all the time. You might be getting overwhelmed with notifications. And so to change those, you would click on your picture in the top right corner of your screen. That'll bring up another menu where you can go into your settings across all of your teams. It's kind of like your universal settings for teams. Now there are a bunch of settings in here. We're going to go straight to the notification settings and talk about those. So in your notification settings, if you are feeling like you're being over inundated with notifications, those are generally going to be banner notifications, the ones that pop up on your screen saying so-and-so did this or whatever. What you can do is you can disable those. What I recommend is switching them from banner over to only show in feed. You'll still see a little red dot saying, hey, you need to look at this, but it won't be popping up all the time. So you can tell what you need to look at, but it doesn't interrupt whatever else you're doing. So if you feel like you're being overwhelmed with notifications, just change any of these settings that you feel to from a banner to a only show in feed. You can also set to receive email notifications for certain things if you want to as well, if you prefer to see notifications in email. All right, so we've talked about a lot of important things. Now I want to go through one way that you could put a recorded lesson online. You can record lessons on kind of any camera or app you might have. If you have a different app you like for using for recording lessons, if it's Smart Notebook or Screencastify or whatever, if you have a different method of creating the video, if you're like a YouTube star, go ahead, be my guest. I'm not going to tell you you have to use this. I just want to know everyone to know that there is a way that you can record your video, and this is actually how I'm doing this now, using the camera on your computer. So you will take the video that you record or whatever video you're using and upload it to the class materials folder. As I said earlier, there is a 15 gigabyte limit on files that you upload to that folder, and sometimes if it's a big video it might take longer to upload. Just be patient with it. All right, so I'm in Windows. I'm on my Windows computer, and I'm going to go down to the bottom corner where there's a little the Start menu button, and I'm going to click my Start menu. You can go into the Start menu. I can also just search. I love this little search box right here. The search box is really, really, really useful for just typing stuff. I could just go in there and type camera, and the camera app would pop up. But presuming you don't want to do that, I could just go into my Start menu and go down to C under All Programs and click the camera app. Your Windows 10 has a camera app built in that you can use to use the built-in webcam on your computer. So if I'm using that camera app, what I'm going to do is click on it and go in. So this is here is a screenshot of me in my camera app, and I want to make sure I click on that take video. I switch to video mode. If once I've done that, I click the button to see red, hey, I'm recording, and you're off. You're recording your lesson. Once you've finished recording, you hit that button again to stop this button right here. You hit that button again to stop recording, and once it's done, your video will pop up in that little box in the bottom right corner where it says click here to see your video. Right, that little box, that's where you go to find your actual video. So I did that. I clicked on go click on that video. I've done it. I'm looking at the video I just recorded now. You can see there's a little play button, all the stuff that you would have just for looking at a video. To find the file location of this video, because I have to then move this video from my computer into Teams, I'm going to click these three dots, and then I'm going to click on Open Folder. This will take me right to my Pictures folder on my computer. By default, that's going to be under your Pictures. If you go into your files or whatever on your computer, there's like a Pictures folder on your computer. And within that, these will be saved into the camera roll folder. So you can always just go find those from within the Teams upload interface, or if you ever just want to find your video that you made, that's where it is. Your username, Pictures, camera roll. All right, so I have opened that folder. In this case, you can see here's the video I just made. All right, so there's that video. And now I also have, in the background, I have Teams open. So I want to drag this into my general channel. I want to make a post with this lecture. So all I have to do is take that video and drag it down. So I'm going to take that video, I'm going to drag it down and to start a new conversation, and it will ask me if I want to copy. In this case, the answer is yes. I'm going to copy that in here. It will ask me, where do I want to save it? I want to save this into my class materials so that my students can't mess with it. So I click that class materials button. Click upload file, and now that video I just recorded of me teaching what is important conversations about the Internet of Things or whatever it is, it will now be uploaded and my students can then access that video. I could even then turn that into an announcement. So if I click the little announcement button down here, I could actually take that video I just dragged in here, make it into an announcement, and say, all right, everybody, you need to watch this. You need to watch this lecture before the assignment tomorrow. There will be a quiz that goes with this coming up later. Now we're teaching. We're teaching on the internet. We're teaching remotely. Another thing I could do is add the video I just uploaded. So this video has been uploaded to my class materials folder. So once I do that, I can also assign that as part of an assignment. So I've gone back into my assignments tab here. You can see I'm in the assignments tab. That's what's highlighted. And as part of creating this assignment, I can add resources. So I mentioned earlier you can add Word documents, PowerPoints, or videos. So if I've uploaded this to my class materials folder, I would go into Teams, which is where my class materials folder is. I would select the class that I saved that to, and I would go to my class materials folder, and there is the video that I uploaded. So I check that, I click attach, and now so a student will see the assignment. I'm thinking from to make this simple for a student sees, hey, there's an assignment. They click the assignment and the video is right there. And you might put a Word document, so that's right there. The kids don't have to go all over the place to find all this stuff. It's all in one place for them as part of that assignment, so they can keep themselves organized. I think that's a really valuable way to share information with them. And you can see now that is uploading as part of this assignment that the kids will see. One last thing that's not necessarily directly related to teaching with students, but I want you to be aware of, is that there is private chat in Teams. So you can send messages to other Pinellas County school staff members. It's kind of like a Facebook Messenger or a Skype Messenger. There's this compose button on the top of your Teams app. This will take you to the chat menu where you can then search for somebody's last name. And you can see kind of that highlighted thing on the left-hand side there. Now I am now going to be in chat rather than my Teams. All I have to do is start typing the last name of somebody who I want to communicate with. I click their name, and now I can chat with them. So this is a great way to collaborate with your other peers if you're off-site for some reason, or if you need to communicate with someone at the district. You can send them a Teams message and even do video calls back and forth, or do group messages back and forth with small groups of people that you don't want to make like a whole new team for. You just want to chat and collaborate and work together. All right, so let's review what we've learned in this video. I know how to install Teams on my devices. I can install it on my computer, on my phone, on my iPad, whatever. Remember, if you're using a mobile device, all those things, the general channel, your Teams interface, those are all still there. I'll tell you this, they're actually at the bottom of your screen, so you just click on Teams on the bottom on your phone. But it's all there, it's just kind of looks a little bit different. And I might do another in-depth video on how to use Teams on mobile later on. Keep an eye out on that techtoolbox.pcsb.org for more. You know how to get around Teams, the interface. You know how to figure out where you're at so you're not getting lost and frustrated and confused about using Teams. You can post announcements, you can post assignments, and you know how to mute and unmute students so that you can then create discussions in that general channel, which again is your home base. We're focusing just on that general channel. You know how to upload files and videos to your class materials folder. You can grade assignments online, and you know how to find your assignments, you know to emphasize with your students, to click that turn in button so that you can actually see that it's there. And you know how to control student permissions within your team. You also know how to use the camera app in Windows to record a lesson, or if you use another app to create or record some sort of video lecture, you can then upload that as part of an assignment or to your general channel for your students to see. All right, so now that we've gone through this, I'm trying to do my best to anticipate every question a teacher might have about the very basics of how to use Teams. There's a ton of stuff in here that I did not get a chance to go to because I didn't want everyone to get overwhelmed. If you had questions, or if you had something in this video that you wish I'd gone over, or that I went too fast, or something that you know that you love that you think every teacher wanted to know, please take a moment and go to this survey, bit.ly/pcs-teams-survey. This will take you to a Microsoft form. I do want to get better at this. I do want to improve this material, so I will continue to make videos and post videos on our Teams page on our Tech Toolbox blog. So this feedback is really, really important to me. Thank you very much for joining me today, and have a wonderful afternoon.